I'm Braxton Smith, and joining me tonight is Jake Bird. Thank you for tapping into Critical Thoughts. Tonight, we'd like to take a moment to discuss something we've been seeing occurring lately in the media. I think everybody's been seeing it and feeling it, and the disintegration of the GOP seems to be occurring, and we're starting to see this movement known as the alt-right. It's kind of always been there, but now we see it, and we see it taking form and to something that's spooking some of us and has some of us scratching our heads as to exactly what the right is becoming. So, Jake, take it away.
Yeah, a lot of it's tied into just opposing Hillary, and for good and obvious reasons on that end. But it's kind of weird, especially when you look at the media, because we've seen it started first with the Europe right now and their immigration situation, Sweden and all that, and it coming over here and trying to build off of it with Trump, because one of Trump's main ideas that he's been talking about a lot, though he's kind of miled down on it in the end, is immigration and how far that's been bouncing back, and literally almost seeming like the right version of SJW, social justice warriors, is what it seems to be turning into, and that's pretty bad when you've got two solid sides in the political spectrum both starting to breed that kind of disconcerting anti-freedom thought.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I wanted to hit on next. First, actually, I just wanted to get right out the gate with the whole. It's almost interesting. It seems how they feed off of each other. It becomes a vicious cycle. I mean, this lady is terrible, right? Everybody hates her. Even the people that are voting for her hate her. But Bernie says it's the next best option. It's just been pounded into their head. Anybody but Trump, so they're voting for Hillary. And if you vote for anybody else, then you're just a racist bigot. You're a xenophobe. Well, I'm not a xenophobe. I'm not afraid to point out your bullshit. So then you got the other end of the spectrum where, people see Hillary for the terrible person she is. I mean, again, they're making these shirts, and I mean, granted, that's not just, that's not an argument in of itself, but I mean, there's reason behind it. People don't trust her. They feel she's a criminal. You have all these investigations. You have all these mysterious deaths. I mean, she is literally the Grim Reaper. Like, anything she touches dies. The opposite of King Midas. Everything she touches turns to shit. So, here you have these two shit sandwiches. So rather than, and it's all been spun up against each other. So rather than saying, I vote for this person because they stand for this, these are the principles I believe in, we don't have that. It's, they both suck, but this person sucks way less, so I'm going to go with them. So, it's crazy how the media, even at this point, and, as you've seen throughout our history, and you two both, I'm sure you agree that, we both been opposed to Trump all this time. Never really cared for the guy. Every once in a while he hits on something that we're like, eh. And but then, like, here you come with all these, the way the left is trying to just constantly bash Trump on the dumbest shit. And I'm just like, why aren't they talking about Hillary and how the fact that she's a straight up criminal? It's like, I'm trying to figure out, is it like, have they been bought off, or is it that they assume everybody already hates her and so nobody's going to vote for her? So let's bash the other guy just to kind of even them up a bit. I'm trying to figure out what they're doing, but what they're doing really for me is pissing me off and making me want to get on that Trump train. I won't, but I'm just saying, it's like, damn, they make it difficult.
Yeah, that cycle of feeding, you're right. It is a very interesting thing, because usually right off the bat, especially with the social justice warrior types, the critical race theorists and things like that, one of their earliest insults is always racist or, homophobe or something like that. They're always throwing those out there. And at the point, it becomes pretty mundane. It becomes like the boy crying wolf, because people are paying attention, maybe not as much as we would like at times, but when they see claims of racism going around and homophobia and all this, and then they see this person's reactions and how they're talking and how they're speaking, and they don't match up, eventually they start ignoring it, or they start, going with that politically incorrect angle. Well, if this is the narrative and they're calling them these things, then obviously that's the opposite. That's something I might be wanting to go into. But the problem is we're seeing with the alt-right is because they're adopting some of the theoretical propositions of race theorists, that race is an essential factor for determination. They are being racist at times, and sometimes they're not just being politically incorrect, but they're just being awful to freedom and awful to other people. But it keeps feeding in this cycle, because the left will keep throwing out the terms racist, homophobe constantly. The other side will keep going, well, we've heard this song and dance before, so why should we think about it? Or on the other hand, they might go, well, they keep going.
Yeah, dude. No, you actually make a really good point. It's something I mean, we have all our conversations off the air, and I've actually haven't considered that. Talking about the boy who cries wolf. It's like you keep calling people a racist just because they disagree with you. And then whenever it gets to the point where they really do become a racist, to the point that is detrimental to society, they aren't paying attention to you because you call them a racist all the time. Why are they going to pay attention? It's just like, and you know what? I guess that should mean that us libertarians, maybe we should chill out with always calling people statists. But sometimes it does drive the point home. And speaking of statists, that's the scary thing with these two, is that it's crazy how now that people are so backed up behind these people, it's like they're so behind Trump because Hillary's such a terrible person that they're at the point where they went from saying, Trump, he's a little off, but he's a lot better than Hillary. Now they're at the point where he can openly talk about shutting the media down if they don't print what he wants. When he becomes president, he can openly talk about shutting them out completely, shutting down the First Amendment, and people justify it. And we've seen this time and again with presidents. I think you were talking about identity politics, right? What was that spiel about?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that I kind of want to go off what you just said right there too, because I know as Americans we're not too much strangers about the president organizing through his press secretary whatever he wants to hear as far as song and dance most of the time, but that's still a far different cry from completing shutting it down. But as far as identity politics, yeah, it's becoming more along, again, when the left talks about, the left in general talks about minority groups and people being marginalized and things of that nature. There's a current in the alt-right, especially over in Europe, with the migration problems they've been having there in Sweden and Germany and such, where there's towns and cities and counties, and they're feeling like the natives are the marginalized. When you're dealing with cover-ups with the Germany rapes, and there was also a situation in Britain like a few months ago where the police completely just overlooked this. I think it was formerly Pakistani immigrant grooming circle for young girls, where they were kidnapping them and making them prostitutes simply because they were afraid of being called racist if they were going to investigate that. And again, they're playing off each other, because one side sees what they're doing and what they're getting away with. The other side is going, well, okay, let's try to be the ones to get that cudgel from the government and go, we're the marginalized ones. And it's just scary.
Yeah, you start seeing them push off of each other, and it's just like how we were talking about earlier, how you have the media creating this vicious cycle where you start to hate the other candidate more, and you start hating each other more and more back and forth, and keep slinging all this mud. And you get to a point where you start justifying what they're saying, no matter how outlandish it is. I mean, really, Trump can literally get away with it, whatever he wants to at this point, saying whatever he wants to, and he's going to keep his base voters. The same with Hillary. I mean, Hillary can be, she could be locked up in prison, and they would probably bust down the doors and break her out just to get her to beat Trump. So it's like, it's not out like too crazy to think that we have could have fascism in the future. And this is the other thing, we're talking about. Don't cry racism at every moment. Don't cry statist. Don't cry fascism. But this is a situation where you have all the elements for it. You look throughout history, and it's like you have dogma for anything, and you can convince people to rip a heart out of another man and eat it while it's still beating as a sacrifice to the gods, for example. So we've seen it time and again throughout history, all the way to ancient Aztecs, through Nazi Germany, etc. It's not too outlandish to think that it could happen now, and kind of seems to be creeping up on us. I think we all feel this pressure building now, and that's it all comes back to, what do we have now? What are we building? We see the GOP crumbling. I was so ecstatic to see that, but now it's turned into a nightmare. It's like, where are all the libertarians? Where are all the liberty lovers? The Trump train, really? Like, is this guy really who's going to represent you? That's why I'm kind of pulling more for Gary Johnson. He says some dumb stuff every once in a while, but for the most part, he trumps the Trump and completely shits all over Hillary. So, but where do we go as the right? I consider myself a member of the right. I kind of relate more with the right, and I see us going down a scary path right now. You see the disintegration of the GOP. There's huge policy changes happening. Even the left, you saw them talking about being socialists now. They're outright saying, yeah, we're democratic socialists, like openly. You used to get lynched for that, just saying. But,
yeah. And
now,
meanwhile, the neocons are flooding over and supporting Hillary.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're seeing all these crazy shifts. And so where are we going now? And you see it. They're following Donald Trump. And what's really creepy, did you have a point before I shift on to the next subject? Did you have anything you want to put up?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. It's just mainly that whole vicious cycle, and how the ideas seem to be just becoming two sides of the same coin. And it's just eerily how both similar they are, going into those extreme points. The horseshoe theory. You go far enough left or right, and they all bend towards authoritarianism.
Yeah, we've been seeing that too. Just like you said, all the neocons going towards Hillary because she's a little more pro-war. And so, but what I wanted to talk about, what's been spooking me lately, is the fact that Donald Trump is an authoritarian. At the end of the day, you look at his policies, you look how he acts. He's saying, me, I, Trump, only I can take care of all this. And, he never talks about, coming together as the American people. It's always him bringing the iron fist and saying, no, my way or the highway. And so it's almost like people want their Caesar. Here we are, we're at that moment, just like with Rome, so now we're electing our Caesar to handle this situation. And, so it just concerns me that, we're putting all our chips in this basket, and it's like, what happened to 2012, and you see all your media outlets. This is the part that's scary the most is, you have your alternative media. Everybody's shifting away from mainstream media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their viewership's down. They are crashing, and they were getting very desperate right now. It's all going to alternative media. You got Glenn Beck, Alex Jones. Okay, I might listen to him every once in a while, just see if any UFOs have landed lately. Chris Green was another one I'll listen to. Glenn Beck, not so much, but Alex Jones.
Yet.
Huh? What's up?
You're not a Trump supporter yet? My gosh, what a cuck.
Yeah, right. Right? And we'll get to that in a minute, actually, that term there. I wanted you to expound on that a bit more for some of the people out there that might not have heard anything about that. But talking about what the Chris Green and Alex Jones, though, they're both endorsing Donald Trump, and they did right out the gate. And I'm like, you know, listening to you guys, you're libertarians through and through. You're always backed Ron Paul. Y'all are like, oh, Ron Paul's the way to go. Buy my water filters. So what happened? Like, sometimes I wonder if they weren't bought out themselves. Don't mean to go all Alex Jones on it, but what if? What if the alternative media was bought out? Because that is the new mainstream media. If everybody's shifting from mainstream going to alternative, and so now you have everything going into alt-right, this crazy fascist and liberty movement just seems to be dying, really. Okay, and rant. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the alt-right is, like I say, it is kind of like the SJWs, and for all its faults, at least in its early stages, it's still short of like black supremacists. It's still short of the Nazis, but it is making that breeding ground. But I don't know. There was something you had just said a little while ago, and I caught it and I lost it. But
Talking about the Cucks.
Well, we can explain about that. But yeah, Cuck comes from the term cuckold. It's basically the man that gets his wife commits adultery and usually has to raise some other man's kids and stuff, and it's just become like this general term in the alt-right for just anybody that's just not getting it, man. Kind of like statists and all that. Oh, you're a cuck.
Yeah, they seem a little too familiar with that term. Makes me wonder about them sometimes. That's none of my business.
But yeah, like you were saying with Alex Jones and stuff, and it is kind of hard because when you start getting surrounded by all this talk, especially on the racism, the sexism, and everything, and when you see where they're obviously wrong, yet somehow they're getting away with it, it does want to polarize you and make you want to go, completely in the opposite direction. Which I think is the main attraction with Trump in this whole thing, is because that's completely the opposite side. It's the same coin, but it's the opposite side. And I guess that kind of fuels the fire on the other side too, because when they go, I know there's some alt-right in Europe that go, well, it's pretty much a white genocide over there. And you see that, and I can understand the feeling with how ruly, especially in some places like Sweden, it is, but it's not literally people just hunting down and killing whites, because, for instance, not all those countries have completely white populations, even though it's Europe. There are natives there. There are immigrants that came before, and they're in the same boat. They're in the same jeopardy. And it's easy when you're bouncing between those two paddles to get caught up in the energy of it and not actually stop and think about it.
Right. Well, I don't know, man. I'm about out of ideas on this one. I think I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to on this.
Yeah, basically, and you're right about Trump. He's completely authoritarian. One of the things that really bothers me on the right side is the small little details that they always try to pick out to support him. Well, he's got a list of Supreme Court judges, and it looks pretty good. Okay, he's flip-flopped with his war stance.
Where's Andrew Napolitano, though?
Yeah.
That's the only one I care about.
Obvious libertarian one, but just look at some of his other policies. He came out as a war hawk real early in the debates. Now he's mellowed out. His immigration policy, it started to soften some. The whole idea as far as Obamacare and single payer and all that. I mean,
yeah, actually, that was a bit I was forgetting. As I was drawing a blank earlier, and you just brought me to my next point that I just realized. We're talking about the three aspects of government. We talked about at one point, though. I always harp on this, your triangle. You have your order, your equality, and your freedom. And you have different people that divide it up with different priorities. And I think it's actually fairly evenly divided between equality and order. And then you have us.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If you notice the platform, if you really pay attention to it, what does Trump always say? I'll bring order to things. I'll make everything right. I'll make America great again. You know, he's talking about dropping the hammer. He's the authority. And then you have Hillary on the other hand that says, I'm a woman. Vote for me because I'm a woman. So there you have order, you have equality, and then you have Gary Johnson. And so what you have these candidates doing, they're going in, they're locking these people, and that's why you have them polarized, is because oftentimes it's in such a way it conflicts, or you can spin it so it seems like it conflicts. So to say that you're for this, it's just like saying, well, you know, I'm pro-life, so you're anti-choice, or you know, I'm pro-choice, so you're a pro-abortion, pro-abortionist or whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you get these people polarized, and then once you push through and get towards the end of the whole election, you have your people locked in. You have your people that are going to excuse you no matter what you say. Hillary and Trump both have people like this, these dogmatic people that don't care about principle. They're locked into identity politics. So now you try to pull from the other side, or really what they're going for is the undecided voters. So like your people that haven't really been paying attention, but now shit's getting real, so they're like, maybe I should pay a little more attention. And so now you try to move more center ground and maybe say, well, you know, I understand there's families with the immigrants, and I don't want to, you know, blow their houses up or anything. I know I said that before, but come on. So boom, there you go.
Yeah, and the odd thing though is, you know, both Hillary and Trump will try to make their place to the freedom angle, but more often than not, they kind of support more of the order and the equality. For instance, Trump with his equality thing, it's like, well, of course, America should have free trade and everything, but it should be fair trade. You know, we gotta have our tariffs. We gotta make sure everything's balanced out economically like that. I mean, come on, see what China's doing over there. China, they're killing us over there. They've got their tariffs, even though we still got tariffs of our own. And then with Hillary, you know, it'll be historic. Women will finally be in the presidency, but again, she is more of a war hawk. And that's, which is odd considering, you know, the whole Benghazi thing and not defending an embassy, but you know, that's a point into itself. But that's what they
sacrifices to Satan.
But you know, that's the thing. They'll pay lip service somewhat to freedom and stuff, but they're usually always talking either order or equality. And that's really what they're kind of juggling back and forth between, which again, they're not principled. They're just I don't know, two halves of the same face. That it's just one is a louder mouth and appeals to people that like shouting cuck, and the other one's claims to be a woman and she likes to shout racist. So
yeah. So any final thoughts? I think we need to wrap it up.
Alt-right is bad. Why Trump? Why? Freedom, please.
Well, I guess my final thoughts, anyways, probably a little more complex, but so I kind of wanted to reach out again one more time to the Bernie supporters and say, same thing happened in 2012. We were screwed over. You know, we were pulling for Ron Paul. We got mittens. This time around, I mean, really, nobody's fooled by this whole like Hillary Clinton won in the primary thing. At the time I knew no Hillary supporters. I could rarely ever find one. And the polls, there's something fishy. I know the whole thing was fixed. We saw that it was completely fixed in 2012. Who's to say that it couldn't happen again? I mean, she got out of prison how many times? Nobody gets that many get out of jail free cards in Monopoly, let alone real life, except Hillary. Again, I beg you to reconsider, definitely not Trump, but maybe consider Gary Johnson. And then for you with the right that are going considering alt-right, remember, Trump or Hillary is principled. That you cannot logically engage in a political conversation and make a point without ultimately ending up like a hypocrite. Either way you go. So, I mean, really, the best route all the way around is the route of liberty. And so, if I had to stress, let's not screw this whole movement. We got this movement shift. We got a breakdown of the establishment, the GOP. Let's not screw it up and become something even worse. This is the pivotal moment, and if we screw this up, we'll be paying for it for decades to come. So that's all I got. What about you, Jake?
Well, though most people don't talk about the main difference between the French Revolution and the American Revolution is that after the French Revolution there was the Great Terror. Let's not try to have a Great Terror in America, which is supposed to be the land of the free.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake, and thank you all viewers for tuning in to Critical Thoughts. This is Braxton and Jake signing out.